Mhm. Yep. Yep. Oh, wow. That's good. So,
We've upgraded the seating.
well, they're up here from, we have to take them back downstairs. Like, they're at the ceiling. Here's a.
I figured I'd bring these today. I went to a workshop last week and they let me bring the extra ones for everybody. It was excellent. Bought on Title IX. Great thing is it was free.
Like that. The OSBH workshops are pretty cost effective.
Yeah. But they had all these extra ones. And I said, you have homes for all those extra ones? They said, well, really, no. And I said, well, could I take them to the rest of my board? Sure.
Good.
So I went and got them. I figured, well, maybe there'll be something there. If not, throw them away. But I figured I'd bring them rather than wait till the board. Now just tell them off the record. Brought all my levy stuff.
Well, they're not even a public record, so you can hand it out without being a public record.
Well, that's what I meant. I just,
Yeah. They don't,
what I meant was I couldn't see keeping them another
oh, yeah,
week
I agree.
or 2 weeks when maybe somebody
8:30. 08:30 at this time. Eastern time zone. UTC -5, I think, is our time zone.
We are live, we're unmuted, we're recording, so.
Call to order this special meeting, the Huron City Schools Board of Education, July 1st, 2021. Mr. Treasurer.
Happy New Year, by the way. New fiscal year. Mr.
Indeed.
Jones. Here. Mrs. Green.
Here.
Mrs. Mass.
Here.
Mr. Slocum. Here. Mr. Ward.
Here. Shall we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The next item is the agenda for the meeting.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Treasurer.
Mrs. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mrs. Mass.
Yes.
Mr. Slocum.
Yes.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Mr. Ward, if you don't mind, before you jump into this levy discussion, I thought it just the governor signed the budget bill. And I have one thing I'd like to show the board, if it's okay, just to show you. Come off, but real quick, our funding for 21, 24. I think we can make it a little bit bigger, but fair funding formula. There is a formula now. It's based on cost to educate students. We've done that calculation, and then so it takes that times your enrollment, includes your capacity. Now, for us, there's still a hold harmless kind of clause in there for 2019 funding. All right, because by the formula, we'd actually get less. We have less students and we have more capacity, just because the valuation's going up. And the capacity is based on 60% real estate valuation, 20% versus federal income, and 20% gets state median. And we're obviously above in both those on the income side as well as on that. So this is how, and there's a couple other changes that our funding essentially, I go to 2.1 million in the restoration. That is where we were in 2019. Okay, the success and wellness dollars are now going to be incorporated into our funding, but they're still going to be restricted funds. So we got to figure out how to code it, but essentially same restrictions that we've had before, so that they can't go into ever, other use. Preschool and transportation, special transportation, both of those, there are provisions actually going to increase the amounts a little bit. They're going to help us a little bit, but they're still small. Okay. Open enrollment is still going to work the same way through the foundation payment. So it's money in for students coming in, money out for students going out. And then we'll see at the net. Net is at the end of June, the last payment. Last year, essentially, our net open enrollment was $280,000. So our open enrollment is almost. The big difference is community school and scholarships will no longer go in and out, they'll go directly to community schools and scholarships. So they won't, right now they're in and out. So it doesn't really impact us if we direct funding. In the end, the next school year, about $31,000 improvement, and then the second $10,000. So this formula essentially where we were. Okay, so assuming that open enrollment at least stays where it is right now. I just want to give you that heads up. So people talk about this budget bill, they're funding it, but
Right, big surprise. So what was is there a new number, what they said it takes to educate a kid?
I can't remember what that number is.
Six.
It's versus the Senate had just said, oh, $6,100 or whatever the number is. Then there's actually in there a calculation based on how many counselors you should have based on all these other services. I can't remember what that number is, but that's how they got to it. It was definitely, it was logical, right? They looked across the state. Now, when I say it's logical, the costs are different, right? The costs in Erie County are different than Gallia County.
So it could be, so when a kid leaves your school district and open enroll somewhere else, those numbers could be different.
Now, when open enroll, yeah. Well, the cost is average across the state, so.
Right, I mean, because they could be going, it's gotta be some type of number that they take with them.
And I think it's the same ratio that's 6,000 versus whatever 1,800 that we get from the state. So open enrollment is still the same problem. The difference is they're funding community schools and scholarships directly and not from us. If that makes any sense. So we had a community school kid in our district. They were counted as our students, almost like open enrollment. They're not counted as our students anymore. They're not going to be counted in this number. That's the difference. It's students that we are educating, not the students who live in the district. That makes sense.
Yeah. Good. Significant.
So depending on, anyway, that's where we are. So again, it's out there. It's not helping us. Sandusky's probably going to see a windfall.
What did they say, 2.7, 2.3, 2 point something?
It was substantial.
Yeah.
And the difference, and the reason is that there is capacity. That capacity number is what drives Sandusky has its level of capacity in Huron.
And that's new. That's
It's
not
always-
part of the formula.
It's always been there, except the old form was just based on real estate property valuation. Now they're including income in that.
So they pick up there, sure.
And our median income is higher than Sandusky's, so,
Right.
you know,
Would it
Maybe
ever,
not by much.
would it ever benefit us to go testify before the House or Senate about what Huron's actual low income numbers are and our lake front property, that it shows that, you know, the majority of people don't live in multi-million-dollar homes on the lake. That's,
again, the issue is we could, you know, this plan benefits 90% of the school districts in the state of Ohio.
but
So-
couldn't there be an asterisk for communities that, you know, derive that benefit?
You get Senator Gavarone, who's everything she has done is against us. You know, her whole thing is back on school choice, everything to pull money away from the public. So
Yeah.
that's the person, she is on that committee that, she ended up coming around, and we spent a lot of time with her and quite disappointed by her.
He's closely tied to the senator on alignment who's driving the whole and choice thing real close.
So I want to belabor, it's a good conversation, but unless you have some leverage, like the school districts who have power plants, they got House Bill 6 through, we just don't have any leverage. And I have not on this, I have testified on other things, on funding, and it's just, not everyone can win. They're looking at it says you are a wealthy school district. The poverty level is not that high.
They're feeling pretty good about
It is.
themselves. They got 90% of the districts happy today.
The issue is we're getting more money than they say we deserve as it is. You got growing districts who are getting significant less than what they, you know, you got districts who are like the whole Tangies of the world, who are adding a new school building every 3 years. They're funded a lot less. So that's the challenge. I mean, you're right though.
Yeah, whenever practically every house that's for sale, from Marconi's to Shelter, or to Old Woman's Creek, is an Airbnb now. How are we going to get more kids in our district? We don't have families with young children moving in. They're just renting it out during the summer and sitting on it all winter. So that doesn't help our capacity, you know?
Anyway, that's the challenge. And the capacity is an important number because like I was telling, the district I came from, they're 113% of capacity. Taxpayers 5, these numbers pay more than their share, they're more like an 87. You know, so it's, now, you can argue that, you know, that's that valuation for people that's, as well as income. Anyway, I just want to give you that update, just to show where we are.
I wonder if we could do some kind of, not like a bed tax, you know, something that we can do to benefit off the backs of our tourists for the school district. Is there any?
Yes. Couldn't we investigate a sales tax?
A what one, Jody?
A sales tax?
Sales.
We have 2 options, real estate or income.
We can't do a sales tax through the county?
I don't believe the school district can. I can check on that, but I don't believe there's a way, there's nothing in the provision that allows school district to raise money through sales tax.
Great question. I've not heard of it.
There are some.
Well, let's
mechanisms-
verify that.
There are some mechanisms to economic development where the city, under certain circumstances, get a huge windfall of income payroll taxes, that we can get a portion of it. But that's,
Well, I think with the sales tax, it has to be, don't you have to have all of your school districts want to go after the sales tax? And it's only like a 1% sales tax.
Like all districts in Arizona.
Yeah, they would all have to join in on saying,
What would it be on though? Just consumer goods, or it wouldn't be on food, right?
no, I think it would be more on, more like a sin tax. Sales tax on a sin tax. I don't know. I think it's worth investigating or
I'll
just
check. I don't think
looking.
there's a mechanism.
Oh, Cleveland did their fine arts.
Well,
That's
they,
sin tax that they created.
Yeah.
That's how they built the museum.
Brown Stadium, yeah.
Yeah.
The county did it though. not the
Mhm.
city.
Right.
Yeah, not-
County is always the entity for sales tax. It's county oriented and state.
Well, yeah, and, you know, and I learned this fairly recently, I realized that by our, you know, US Constitution only establishes one decentralized form of government, that's the state. So the state is really the taxing entity for anything within the state. They authorize the county to be able to do that. That's, so we'll check into it. I mean, the county potentially, I can see the county commissioners doing that, but we'll check it. Let me
Other
check.
schools in our district might not be as motivated as us because the formulas tend to, the funding formula tends to work for them right now.
But if you, I don't know, I guess if you argued like for a bed tax and said that, you know, all those Airbnbs are keeping families with children from,
Huron does have a bed tax.
yeah, but that goes to the city.
Right, I don't know that. We have that tax in authority. We're gonna find out.
Yeah, I don't know.
My God, it was $3 million.
I'm just, it's like, hey, maybe we can be creative. I don't know. It's like, you know, everybody that comes in, all the tourists, you know, they pay, purchase things, they go to Cedar Point, whatever, and the county generates tens of thousands of dollars from tourism, which, you know, of course, really hurt them last year. So it's like, you know, if people here would just be like, woohoo, you know, we're not paying for it. Let the tourists coming in pay that 1% or whatever. And I don't know.
Thanks for looking into it.
Yeah. It's never, I'll check. I'm pretty sure not, but county might be able to do it for us, but you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They may not be motivated,
May not,
may not.
but anyway, it's a good thought.
So did Edison and Perkins all get a big windfall? I mean, I know Sandusky did, but
Yeah, everyone did. Everyone did. Margaretta included.
Kelly's Island.
That's what you were saying.
not fair.
Roll to Kelly.
Kelly's got,
And just go there and also maybe teachers will send them teachers.
Edison, 180,000. Margaret, 230, Perkins, 256, Sandusky, 10 million.
10?
I thought the paper said 2 point something.
And then that's what, and then 1,105,000.
Yeah.
This is where whoever's on our levy committee, this is what they really need to share with the community, because they just don't understand why we're hurting.
Without the hold harmless of 2019 level, we would have gotten less than we got this past year.
Yeah, the enrollment has dropped.
So that's scary going forward. Well, we got to wait through the next biannual budget comes out. We could be back to losing money
We
again.
probably have to pay them. They'd probably be asking for it back. You're in a negative.
I was actually working
The
on.
formula comes out and it's even worse for us.
Just brought it up. This is our enrollment. And the one on the left is our school district. Purple is our students that we actually educate. The Senate is based on this number. The House is based on that number on the funding. So again, you're seeing that kind of trend. So going back to your question, Scott, go back to we're being funded at this level here, 2019, and our enrollment last year significant. We don't know what's going to be in 2021.
Do we have any data that shows what the trends will be? I mean, how many 3-year-olds are there out there? What's our enrollment going to, if it's going to continue to
It's expected to
decline?
continue that based on birth rates. I've got
So do we just ride that out, or do we as a group say, let's go out and market, let's set a goal that we want 14 or 1,500 kids in this school district and figure out a way to go out and be that district?
I don't think you can let it ride. That's the trend. I mean,
Or do we are what we are. When we shrink, we shrink. Is that,
but we have to shrink proportionally if we're shrinking. We have 4 buildings right now. We're shrinking. We need 2. We have 100 teachers and we only need 80. That's the thing, is we can't keep operating, in the same capacity as, say, when I was here 8 years ago, when the enrollment is significantly less. I think, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but that is a vision that we need to present along with the levy numbers. This is the explanation, like Donna said, of what the state's doing to us simultaneously. This is our vision for how we're adjusting to the taxpayer to save money because our enrollment's dropping.
That's right. In a 10-year span, when our enrollment dropped 11%, our staff actually dropped 18%.
Right.
So in recent years, we have made appropriate, and you could argue beyond appropriate, and corresponding cuts. The 4 building question is
It's huge.
that's now we're, I think, at that precipice to take a look at. We've got 4 cafeterias and 1,300 students,
Yeah, not to mention, the transportation to the different.
not to
places.
mention all of that as well.
And I would guess that if you're gonna go, say, from 4 to 2 buildings, you are gonna be able to cut some staff too. Yes.
Let me, just ignore the titles on these, because this was a work in progress, and then when the budget got passed, I stopped. This just shows, this is open enrollment in, open enrollment out, this is community school. Kind of those trends. And this is money going out, the light purple is open enrollment out, the dark purple is community school. This money is coming directly out of one show. Property valuation. This is the first 3 bars are 14, 15, 16. These last 3 bars are 17, 18, 19. The reason it was that broken that way is the Senate was using this data and the House was using that data. And I don't know why, but again, and the blue is residential, right? You've seen some growth in the commercial, but the blue is residential property valuations. And we're expecting a big increase this year, 15 to 7. I got 15% built into the 5-year forecast, but the state average is 17%. I don't know what this is. Oh, this is federal income tax. So, the 14, 15, 16, 16, 17, again, our federal, from an income standpoint, we're seeing, significant, fairly significant increase here, 18 to 19. This is, state median income, is the yellow line. Can't read this, but, I can hear it. State Village is first Avon Lake, Benton Carroll, then Huron. So this is that kind of route to quarter, Huron right here in terms of versus state median income. This is the capacity one. Danbury right here, and blue is federal adjusted, orange is weighted state, and the gray then is the valuation per pupil. So Danbury kind of throws things off because their property valuation per pupil is very high. We are right there. We are comparable to Avon Lake and Bay Village in terms of capacity. And Port Clinton is obviously was higher than us, and Danbury, we're right with these two. So there's a low one there. Sandusky City. That's why they're getting up. And they're also at 40%. And I was planning to show you this one.
Randy, what else is in capacity besides enrollment?
Capacity is your property valuation essentially, and your income, federal.
Oh, it's all, okay.
And divided by your enrollment.
Oh, okay, divided by, all right.
What this does, this is a chart of capacity per pupil. So Danbury is like 700,000. Huron is 271,000. You can see, so we're, I don't know if that route to quarter is meaningful or not. It's the one school districts around us. And, and we're toward the, Avon Lake slightly ahead of us.
I'm more accurate than just Erie County.
Our enrollment has dropped 12% over the last 10 years. Which, that's this column right here. Perkins, Benton Carroll, Vermillion, all over 20% drops.
That's a trend throughout the state, right? I mean,
Yeah.
public education in general.
Just less.
Yeah, I think with rare
Less
exception.
children.
More options too.
It's more data, the way to do it. Yes. Part of it is I've got more data, all that kind of stuff, like we can create any kind of story you want to tell. The data is available for every, I can do that compared to any school district in Ohio. I even got data that compares to the 5 districts that are like us in terms of enrollment and budgets and stuff like that. I don't use that because most people don't know those districts. Right. Right. But it's a good comparison if you want to compare likes and likes. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's where we are state funding wise. So the issue at hand though is we got a board meeting in 19 days, excuse me. And if we want to have a resolution of necessity on the board, we decide what do you want to do. And then obviously if we've got that, if you want to proceed in November, then challenge of finding someone to do the levy campaign, developing levy committees. First thing is, do we want to go to the ballot in November? Let me rephrase that. We don't want to go to the ballot in November. But are we going to go to the ballot in November? I don't think I don't want to. But...
Indeed. Anyone have strong feelings on that subject since our last meeting?
On going to the ballot?
Going to the ballot in November.
Well, I guess I understand the necessity very clearly. I just think the timeline is short to try and find a levy committee to put it together, to find someone to head it up. I just think we're really behind the 8 ball in time tables. To do something well, to do it so it looks like we know what we're doing, but it's actually not us, it's the levy committee. I understand, like I said, I understand the necessity. I just don't think we have time to execute it well.
We don't have the time to wait either. If we go next spring, we're going to get the same complaints because people do not understand that we have 2 elections every year. So they're going to say the same thing. I didn't know there was in May, you know?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think if we had time to if there was time to vet a really great levy committee that could voice that concern of, we have 2 elections, we're going in May, to get that message out there for a much longer time, it may not have the same outcome, but I understand what you're saying. I
Because then,
understand.
if we would start it in the fall, like we're going on in May, there's still, then you've got that levy fatigue. People are just like, you know, it's like heard it already and then you forget, you know? I just think if we make a concentrated effort and show everybody, we want you to know that we're putting it on in a general election when everybody's going to go vote.
I think that's huge. And the biggest thing I've heard from everybody is they felt like this thing was stuck in May. You know, I didn't know about it. It was snuck in. I was in Florida. They're trying to slip one past the goal. And yet we don't have time on our side, but I think if we don't go in November, then people are going to think it's sneaky again. I think we have to just put it right up in their face in November. And we need it. And if you don't go every time you can get voters to the polls, then they don't think that there's the sense of urgency that we all know exists. So we can pull it together. And I think the big thing that I keep going back to what Paul said at the one board meeting, you know, before I was here, you guys didn't have the luxury of face-to-face in meetings. We have that luxury now where we can pull people into McCormick, do a presentation on the state budget and answer questions. We can pull people into McCormick and explain the canning factory and what that's going to mean, all that kind of, and answer questions. So
Yeah, and that's huge. I think what we need to do is when, I think Donna, when you and Scott were running again on a contentious year, and we did house people, we invited people in our neighborhoods to our homes, and we had people come in and speak at our homes. I think people are much more comfortable going to someone's home that they know and they trust than showing up at McCormick.
Yeah.
I don't.
Do all of it.
Yeah.
we can vote.
Yeah, I think the combination is the answer,
Yeah.
because I know what you're saying is true.
Because you hosted the Beechwood one.
I did.
We had one
Yeah.
at Huron Green. We had one in, well,
That was a
Soldiers
different,
had one.
that was a
Soldiers had
different
one.
Oh, that's what we
situation.
were talking about. That was something else.
But
That was
I
something
thought we had
different.
one like in
Yeah.
Village Green,
Yeah.
Roxford.
Soldier
We
had
hit
one,
you guys
Every
hit every neighborhood in the city of Huron.
Rye Beach,
Yeah.
the one
Yeah.
person, she was driver,
Oh, that was at Thaxton's house
Baxton's house.
in Rye
Yeah, we
Beach.
were all over. We were out
Yep.
by Plumbrook. What's that neighborhood called?
Oh, yeah, in the Fitzgerald allotment.
Fitzgerald.
Mhm.
Yeah, we had
So-
10 or 11 of them.
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
there was a lot. So I think the big question then is, who's gonna head the levy committee? Who is gonna be the face of the levy committee? Because that's so important.
Got to be
So
somebody in the
important.
community, because I will tell you that I do not want anybody
Right.
employed with this school district other than Randy and myself to have anything to do with it.
Correct.
Nothing whatsoever. Now, if anybody on their own time that lives in the community outside of the work they want to participate, that's their business. But we know that we can't have anybody internal, nor do we want to. I mean, they're employed to come in and
Right.
you know, work their tails off every day, because in that aspect, we have to show the community that we're, especially coming back after COVID, we're back, we're in for 5 days and we're doing what we do best. So we have to, quickly identify somebody or somebody's, head it up.
The
John-
gentleman
John's been
that
trying to
sat
say
back there,
something. Pardon me.
He just doesn't, he's new to town.
Oh,
And
okay.
he's got all the energy and the ideas and stuff, but I don't know that
He's not responding back to me. I'm
Yeah.
absolutely involved in the finance committee. I'm even running that one.
John?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I just want to welcome Mr. Ruff.
Thanks.
I'm glad to see you here.
Good to be here.
And to piggyback kind of on what Scott said, and I also think that if we wait, it also may send a signal that we really don't need the money. And I'm just saying that it's like, how bad do they need it if they're going to wait again? Even though I understand your concern, trust me, I understand it. But just like John said, I think if we start today, which I guess we probably can't until we take a vote. I don't know, but
No, there's no reason why you can't start organizing the levy
I
committee.
mean, I think there's time. I mean, it's July, I know that, but
Most superintendents I talk to, the rule of thumb is when you're after a levy, you keep it on the ballot until you pass it. You go after it every time. That's just, those little unwritten rule things that people, I was just talking with Denny Dowdy yesterday, but he was in Norwalk. They were kind of in a similar situation with us. And that's what they did. He was a believer that you keep. Again, I think the big thing too, when we go to the ballot, is the simultaneous vision that we have to put out for our schools. That going back to that idea of, yes, our enrollment's dropping. These people are good. We know the cost cutting measures, but what do we see for the future?
Mhm.
What are we also doing how are the wheels turning educationally, functionally, operationally, facility wise? We know we have the people coming in August, but it's like a two-prong attack.
what would we do? Would we funnel like suggestions to you? Or who forms, I've been to
I know the levy committee we have to get
Who
somebody,
does
it's
that?
gonna be registered with the board of
Either,
elections.
yeah. So we would give you suggestions.
Right, yeah, we get
Somebody-
meetings together and then I could organize people
Because
and,
I have some already.
right, yeah, that's the best way to do it.
if there's meetings and stuff, board members can go to them.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about original, yeah, they can. Board
Well,
members can
what-
go.
Okay.
Does anyone have a
Well-
neighbor or a friend that might be interested that,
I will tell you, I reached out to Amy Springer because she is so engrossed in Huron culture, kids, families, Huron, and she's just said no. I mean, she's taking over Booster as president. They're moving in September. She's just overwhelmed. She said she would consider it if it was a May levy, but November, she said she just cannot. It's just too much. And I guess just to your point, when I went to the levy workshop or when I virtually, she really strongly recommended that one board member go to the levy committee meeting. And then that one board member communicate to the rest of us.
Maybe
That there should not be 2 or 3 of us showing up at these levy committees, and we essentially should be silent.
Keep it brief.
We're just getting information to bring back to the board to update them on progress.
Maybe we appoint a liaison maybe.
Yeah.
Randy, have you ever heard of this? Have you ever seen a board member take a sabbatical? Do something like that? Just say.
Well, in the levy campaigns I've been involved in was successful, and this was before, I had one when I was on the board, but the board was not involved. But we had a strong levy committee and campaigns. In fact, 3 of us ended up becoming board members after the levy.
that's exactly what happened.
But we had a strong, it was kind of Jody's point is, even the superintendent and the treasurer were not all that involved because they didn't need to be, because they had a strong committee. The treasurer was more involved. We were talking to him all the time. He was providing them the charts and the data, or they say, hey, we need you to come to this meeting. But like, for example, on the marketing side of it, I had a retired judge who went to all the senior functions and presentations. Like Chillicothe is very similar in terms of retirement as Huron, not as well, but we needed those votes, and the best person to talk to them was retired judge. And so, but the committee did that. The board did not have to be involved. Unfortunately, when we were structured this past time, we didn't have a committee, right? It was Amy and Bill were doing a good job, but it was the rest of us driving it, and that stayed.
Committee, in theory, those are two great people to be, part of it, be even drivers, but there was no team that was built around them.
I think when you build your committee, if we're gonna go in November, obviously, time is of the essence. We have to put people together. If we don't pass in November, then we still have the core group of our committee, and that committee can strengthen as we continue to go back to the ballot, if that's what we decide. So it's not like we'd be starting from scratch if we're not successful in November. We can bring more people, again, only because we're behind the 8 ball now in terms of time. So we have
Will
to
would ever take something like
expedite
that on? Sure.
Good question. I don't know.
Somebody that's associated with the schools in the past, that's
Mhm.
respected, that,
Mhm.
has experience in another school district. Will Folger.
what I was thinking.
I certainly would be happy to approach him.
It's not gonna be. an
Well, I think
easy
that-
job.
I
It's
think
gonna be
that
high energy.
John needs to approach him. I think that,
I'm his next door neighbor, that's why I said.
yeah.
I go, hey, Will,
Yeah.
Don't talk.
have a coffee.
Gee, I'm so sorry your yard just started to die. What happened over here, Roundup? You will be our.
So Will, I mean, I had a
Yeah.
conversation with Will after the last levy, and, we talked about what we thought his outsiders went wrong and right, and he talked a lot about, he was in Sheffield, he had Sheffield Village and Sheffield Lake, so he had 2 very different communities incorporated into one district. And had some challenges, but did get it passed. So I think he would,
He's
in the
got
here and now, he would
experience,
be, as a retired school administrator, he's got a lot of family in town. All his kids went through Huron. He would be a very good choice.
I think you get some critical too. Citizens for trying to pass money left, but there's some push from those folks. That, right term is they want to essentially shut down and give the money away, and not necessarily for a levy campaign. And I think that's, to me, that's problematic, but that's a private group, right? They can do what they want.
Who do they want to give it to?
You want to give scholarships. But I think if you get the coach, you get someone in place, co-chairs or chairpersons to go and say, Julie's resigned from treasurer, but not taking her off because you got to have someone on the account trying to get over there and,
Do you
transition.
think that maybe Tony Legando would go on with Will?
There's always a chance.
I'm
He's pretty busy these days.
Is he?
Yep, I know he's rejected some invitations in community involvement. But no idea is a bad idea right now.
Let me back up. So I think the feeling is that they're wants to let the resolution of necessity at the next board meeting. And the next question is which one? Yeah.
Right, and actually, I'm sensing consensus with concerns noted that we don't have a committee and we're behind the 8 ball, but I'm sensing consensus, we want to be on the ballot in November. And then the second question, in what form?
Yeah.
Property tax,
Vote on it in July meeting.
Yeah.
I can put both of them on the,
right.
I can still put both.
But in this work session, maybe someone has developed strong feelings since we voted for both of them in the last meeting. We all went out, asked some community members. Anyone get some significant feedback?
I talked to everybody that was over the age of 60 and they were all in favor of the income tax.
I mean,
So,
it's your circle.
I don't know if that's a very valid sampling, but,
You know, one group to show up to the ballot, whichever we pick one, whichever one it is.
Yeah.
Customize the ballot language to them.
And we did not do a resolution for both. We did
yes.
one or the other.
Right.
I think, again, it's one of those things, if it were a perfect world, and people were perfectly rational, I think you do, the 0.5%
The compromise.
and on that. But I think I don't remember who asked me, which one would I go with? I go with one that passes.
That's right.
It's not, there's not a best answer. It's which one pass. I think an income tax makes the most sense from a district standpoint and logical. When you're looking at the entire constituency of taxpayers, but that doesn't mean people will vote that way, right? Because to Don's point, you know, if I'm on retirement or some other income, I want to earn income tax, but I may not understand it, vote that way. And I look at me, I work, I don't live in a very expensive property, so an income tax is over 50% tax increase on me. Right,
So we were talking about having a short window to get something written, get a lot of momentum by November, and the income tax part is the harder one to sell, not sell, but I mean, to present and to educate, because it's so foreign to us. Nobody does it around here. So you got the education piece.
Why does the coastline on has an income tax?
Yeah.
Norwalk has a 1%.
They do.
For the school?
They have something that.
They passed that probably 20 years ago. I mean, it's been around a long time.
Right.
I think we had talked about at a previous meeting, just looking at the scope of our community, that we are a more aged community. So that income tax burden is going to go on to people that are still working in our community, which is a lot less than retirees in our community. So, you know, you may get a huge windfall of retirees coming out to vote for it, but you may not get your crowd that it's actually going to
Yeah, that's like
hurt the
hopeful
most.
for all my friends to not show up.
What?
Right? I mean, I'm serious.
But you have to
Wow,
convince the older
Yeah.
people that need to
So you
vote.
know what? I
That's the
know.
other thing. They're gonna say, it doesn't affect me, so I'm not gonna go vote.
It's going to
If you
absolutely
feel that strongly, don't
do
just,
that.
please don't show up to a ballot then.
Yeah,
Would
but I
an
mean,
income tax prevent people from moving into the district with families? I mean, we know our enrollment is down, so someone's looking at homes, but they say, oh, you know, you go here and, you know, you have an income tax. You go to
If we added the 1%, pardon me, we still would be below the state municipal average of income tax. Going from 1, which the city of Huron is now, to 2. The average municipality is 2 and change. So we're still below average.
That's, you know, the city doesn't do anything. That would-
Yeah, we don't have total control over that, but there is a state maximum, but addressing your point of, does this scare folks off? It could. But we're,
Speculative.
yeah, but we still compare at least okay. Now we're at 1% only.
Yeah.
We're
some
way
realtor-
below average.
Yeah, some realtor isn't gonna sit down with a family moving in and go, this is what the property taxes on this house were a year ago. This is what they are now.
yes, they do.
300 more.
Yeah, they do. You always compare real estate taxes when you're buying a property. I mean,
Oh.
your realtor.
Oh, yeah,
will sit down with you and
yeah, I
tell
get
you,
that, but
this
I'm
is what it
saying
was,
for the
this
most
is
part,
what it
Property
is.
taxes are
Keep-
reasonable.
Our
Whatever
property
is
taxes are
outside
very
came
reasonable.
back or
So-
whatever, our property taxes are relatively
If
reasonable.
somebody's looking at realistically, like, okay, if I'd have moved to here in a year ago, the taxes on this house would have been A. Now I'm moving this year, the taxes are gonna be B. And or then income tax on it's like what you said, people just start doing that mental math and, I don't know. Maybe it just feels less onerous when it's on your house instead of your income.
There's a whole bunch of data that we just gotta break down and take it and say, is this group big enough? What percent can we get the turnout to vote? Is this group too big? What percent's gonna turn out? You know, demographics, it shows we've got a whole bunch of people in their peak earning years right now. This thing doesn't work for them, right?
And isn't that the job of the levy committee to kind of do that
I would think,
search
I
and
think the
homework?
committee, as much as information as they can get in all those areas.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why, again, someone like Will, who's been through it, would be valuable, but yeah, your committee, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a big job. That advertising, everything.
And Donna's absolutely right. Depending on your circle of influence or your circle of friends, the answer is Very different.
Just a quick math problem in your head. You can see
Yeah.
them doing what you're
Yeah.
presenting, right?
Yeah,
And
because,
it's like in a
yeah.
minute, there's like, oh, that doesn't work. That doesn't work for me.
yeah, some people would much rather pay their real estate tax than an income
Yeah.
tax.
Randy, did you get from the auditor, like, what would be the number for a property tax?
5.6.
5.6? How come it's lower than what we had in May?
It's like-
It's the same.
Okay.
I thought that was 6 point.
No, it's
No,
fine.
5.6.
Mhm.
So you're talking about affordability. This is the effective tax rates for schools across Route 2 quarters. So Avon Lake, Bay Village, Benton, Huron's right here. Okay, so we are the continuing 20 mils. Our emergency is 8.3, which will drop, and then we've got our permanent improvement. on there.
Only 3 or 4 districts that are less than us there.
So, with the passage, we'll end up being up here. We need a 5.6. We'll end up there. I just want to put it in perspective.
Mhm.
Right now, we are relatively, we're in the middle of the pack, right? Danbury was lower, and Fort Clinton, again, you saw their valuations were
Right.
higher.
What do you, is this really showing tax burden or what is it really
This
saying?
is our
Effective millage.
Oh, okay, okay.
Effective millage.
Was effective millage, right? So all I'm saying is we are, like, it's out there comparing, everyone, we're kind of middle of the pack, we end up here, 5.6 mils. So not, well, it'll be higher than a lot, but it would not be. Anyway, it is what it is.
It wouldn't be abnormal, yeah.
Randy, you already gave us or told us about the income tax, how much 1% would do, would
Mhm.
bring in based on.
2.4 million.
Yeah.
But it's taxable.
It's just a little more than the.
Mhm.
No, in other words, the availability is there, is what I'm saying. If we have enough income.
It's gonna bring in more, take longer to get it, and it rises with inflation. So if incomes go up, it's not capped like,
Yeah.
5.6 mil, probably by the time it's implemented, it's gonna be less than 5.6 mils. It's gonna generate the same 2.1 million, because our property values are all gonna go up in this reassessment. So actually end up being less, but it'll generate 2.1 million. That's the key. That's the thing. It's hard to explain sometimes. But income tax is an income tax. 1% is what it is. I just want to point that out because people talk about how high sometimes, we have some higher taxes.
Oh, yeah, I hear you.
More time, it really don't.
I know you made the joke about 7/8, but is there a law that says it must be?
3/4, which is not enough. 1% is a little bit.
Okay, so we can't pick what we want.
3/4 or 1%.
Yeah, but we can't say we want 0.90 or whatever. Okay,
Anyway, I just, but again, remember there's delay in the collection on that. I can pull that chart up again that shows you where we end up.
It'd be like, hate to commit to income tax and then have to go on the ballot 2 or 3 times to get it, because that puts us even further behind, right? If we nailed it in November, that'd be great. But what happens if we just we're getting closer, but we take our lumps again in November, nobody wants this, and then we're into the next year, is it a full year delay to get the income tax?
Let me pull that off. If I can.
Which knowing you got it coming means you can do some things, but there's just.
can put off fiscal emergency at least.
Yeah,
Now, we know we're getting it. You continue to borrow from the state, right? You know that you've got that coming.
right.
Sometimes I overthink my own system. Let's see. So this was November passed. And income tax is the, at least what you can see, it's the gray one. So it's here. So it makes us longer. And then that's the gray one, and it passed in November. If we wait till May, it is, again, the gray. The 2 million is where I think that's kind of our foundation. If we're below that, we're borrowing, right? So we're probably borrowing for a couple of years, and we're good for a couple of years. So we can squeak by. We'll be hand to mouth for the whole time of that levy. It waits till May, but we still survive. That makes sense.
My gut tells me we need to stay the course on what we've asked for. Property.
5, 6.
It's just pure instinct.
Mhm.
Listen, people that I'm talking to, but I think it shows that we're committed to what we originally asked for, which, a lot of people didn't like the way that it was done.
Mhm.
So we're not afraid to come back and ask for the same thing again and say, hey, we're going to get it right this time, versus maybe the possibility of more confusion if there's an income tax.
Now.
Where are they up to now? That's exactly
That's
it.
right.
I think, we took our lumps obviously in May. And I think we just have to stay the course of what we want to do, because we know from Randy's presentation and from the data that that's the money we need, that 5.6 mils. Again, this is from my gut. I don't have, data to support that other than, people that I've talked to in the community, maybe past practice. But that's just my thought.
I think that argument, if you don't go wide, it's out there wide that much. If you don't do that much, then you get back to that list or other ideas on reductions.
That's exactly it. Yeah, if you don't do 5.6, you have to implement more reductions. Otherwise, then you're setting yourself up for, you ask us for too much money.
Some of those reductions are just kind of one-time reductions. Like they don't get the compounding effect that you get, right? Or
No, they're all.
I guess if it's a salary or something, you've got
Well,
lost
but
that salary.
obviously wage freezes. If you what's the chance of negotiating a complete wage freeze with the certified staff in the spring? I wouldn't bet my paycheck on it. I mean, we could do an impasse or
Never
something.
really shown that willingness in the past.
And then how long? And it's not forever. Even if you negotiate it, it's not forever. At some point in time, you got to get new money, and you're going to bring them back up. All you're doing is delaying. I would put them in there as order of magnitude, not as practical. The practical stuff is the uglier stuff, right? Limiting athletics. That we know.
Those are kind of things that hit nerves, though.
But, and even eliminating athletics doesn't solve the problem, right? It's a significant chunk, but it doesn't solve the problem. Yeah. Closing McCormick, which I think probably has to be done anyway, at some point in time in the next couple of years. And Denise is already working on taking care of the cafeteria. It's save the district $25,000. It's not a lot, but she's making that step. She's also looking at custodial time over there. So she's looking at those things now, and then she'll work with John on figuring out how to implement it if that's the case.
And communicate that out to our district.
Yeah. We are in this position with food service where we've got some people who are not coming back. She can do that without negatively impacting people. So that's, which is a good thing, right? Due to attrition rather than having to let people go. So, but we'll start looking at McCormick. And I think that's something that we gotta look at seriously regardless.
No action is required till the July meeting, is that
No
correct?
action required. I'm just looking.
Clarify that.
Yeah, I mean, I can put both resolutions on there,
Mhm.
Again, to all the points. If I were living in my ivory tower and didn't have to worry about it, I'd recommend income tax. But what will pass, and I think John's point's exactly right, consistent with what you're asking for. But we put both of them on there, we can still, you can decide. I would hope that it will be unanimous whatever we decide. Because committee's gonna run it, but people are gonna say, well, you know, that Mr. Slocum didn't agree, so we must know something that we don't.
Right. We seem to be on the same page, seeing the value of both. But what the treasurer said, what will the community support? What will pass? What is most likely to pass is the best course of action. And I'm getting a sense for where we are on that. Anyone else? Good to the order?
So it seems to me, let me summarize this. Number one priority is finding someone or someone to lead this, and then having them pull their committee together. That's got to be the number one priority.
I agree. I want to say one thing though to that, and a dynamic personality, energized, surrounded by some support will make a levy committee that we need. With that said, I think one of our problems of many in the last campaign is that it did appear that we were, I don't know, either less than transparent, certainly not accountable. Now, part of that, maybe a big part, and Mr. Ruff mentioned it, we had several conversations over, and with the, in the context of a booster meeting, COVID hurt us, let's be real. Those coffees did not happen, could not happen, were never even discussed. So I think we've got to be careful. While there's no doubt we need an energetic, dynamic person to help us communicate why now, why this amount. We also can't completely hide behind that committee. Hey, nobody from the school gets involved. Coffees, McCormick, People's Homes, a person who's on the board, a superintendent, a treasurer, can be accountable, can be transparent, but I do agree, isn't going to lead the charge.
I think if we combine our strategy from, gosh, hard to believe it was 8 years ago, like what Jody mentioned, if we got a representative, like say Will agreed to be the chair, but we got 10 like kind of vice chairs from all the neighborhoods in Huron. And then they were responsible for just their neighborhood, hosting, you know, having conversations with neighbors, putting in a little strip like, hey, board member or the treasurer is going to be at my house on Sunday for an hour. Come and listen to why the school needs money. You know?
I don't know that you want a board member to come.
No, it doesn't have to be. But I think if the neighborhood person feels less than confident, although if they've been, let's just say, sufficiently educated throughout the committee, that they could answer the tough
Right. Or
questions.
have someone from your levy committee go, if you're having, like you mentioned, maybe committee members possibly from different areas in Huron, then that levy committee person would be responsible then
Yes.
for
Yes,
trying to find a home, whether it be theirs or someone else's, to hold a meeting in,
Right.
and they would be the mouthpiece
right.
to
Yes.
convey.
So
not
for
a
example,
board member.
if you weren't on board and you said, I'll do the Beechwood Cove, like you
Mhm.
did for Scott and I,
Yeah.
then you would be part of the committee and hopefully you would feel sufficiently
Yeah.
confident
Right.
when people came to answer questions.
Right.
But if you didn't, what would be your, I guess, your fallback to ask
Well, then I
like
would-
John to
I
be
think
there?
you
Or
got the talking
Yeah, I-
points, because we're gonna have to establish our mantra, there's 5, 6 points over and over and over again, which we would equip that individual with. But there are also, because then you have got, like, you really have ambassadors. You've got those 10 ambassadors or whatever,
Mhm.
you fully have equipped, you've equipped them
But I
fully.
think we also, the other thing is it's key, and I go back to using McCormick and Randy and myself, is there are people that have major questions that school people have to answer. What are ESSER funds? You guys are flush with cash because the feds just flooded you with ESSER funds. We got to straighten that out. You're flush with cash because Ardo is moving in. It's the biggest canning corporation in the world. So you're flush with cash because of Lucci. People think that. You know, they think that all that stuff is So we don't need it. That Ardo is the answer to all our prayers and things. And obviously the new state funding formula, because in some way, shape or form, the papers are gonna mess that up and make it sound like we're getting more than we are. Those are things that have to come from school people on top of, and again, that's just my opinion, on top of a strong vision of telling our parents where we see your kids in our schools and what they're doing in the future. Okay, we need this money, but I don't know off the top of my head, what we see in the future is a 2-campus school district with safe sidewalks connected between Woodlands and a high school that's a 7-12. You know, we see more and more kids taking advantage of, and I'm going off the top of my head, these are great things. College Credit Plus, so we're remaking our high school. You see all kinds of, well, and you know, you look at the funds for the wellness funds. Wellness and student well-being and wellness, especially this fall, is a huge topic. There's nothing wrong with us telling our community how we're prepared to deal with kids and suicide prevention and harassment and all those things when they come back to school. Does that really have to do with talking about the levy? Not in terms of numbers and data, but it does in terms of winning the goodwill of what our taxpayers are doing and that they're comfortable putting their kids in school here. You know, I had a call from a guy that I've known a long time. They have kids in school, but his grandkid is moving back and he wasn't sure, his daughter wasn't sure if they wanted to enroll in McCormick. Didn't have anything really to do with the levy. They weren't afraid of the possibility of paying more taxes. It was the functional vision of the school. So that I really feel like that has to be the 1-2 punch. That's obviously where we come in.
Yeah.
School.
I would add, and I'm just jotting down like neighborhoods here, but I would add one person to be just the social media liaison. They're not the neighborhood. They're the ones going on Talk of the Town and disputing all the untrue.
Do we need to do that though?
Yes, yes, yes.
And I'm
Yep.
asking that kind of rhetorically. I don't know that I have an opinion or answer for that, but there's a part of me that says,
The other part,
Seems like
which
you
we're
can't
gonna,
keep up and you can't win.
yeah,
Yeah.
it just seems
Just
like
let
you
people
can't
mouth
win.
off, let them mouth off. And sometimes they hang themselves, sometimes
we
they just
saw the
make a
one
point and
woman
make
that
a
came
point.
to our meeting in June that just said, you know, I kept reading this and I, you know, I did my own homework and I thought, I'm just going to the source and asking. So I really think that there may be, because this is a growing movement nationally about like CRT and different, you know, things that are like, parents are fearful of in the schools. They're going to want to be reassured about that stuff, that may have to be as much a part of the discussion as the money issue. So, you know, those are just two things I'm thinking that we need to control.
I just, the social media thing puzzles me because like I said, I don't, again, do you really want to get in a shooting match on social media? Like I said, I think I would respond or not respond. Look, we're appearing at McCormick on August 14th. And so if you have questions, grievances, confessions, or whatever you want to talk about, we'll be there to
That
answer
would be
it.
good too.
Repeat the
That'd be
mantra,
fine.
the final
Yeah.
6 bullet points.
But even that would be a social media presence, not necessarily
It probably would
hitting the
be.
tennis ball back.
Yeah.
No,
Hey,
but
these are questions that you can address at this forum. So putting the word out, here's where we'll be,
Yeah.
being very public and, as I say, very
Show up in
transparent.
person. We all know, and again, my experience from being a building administrator, conversation with a parent on the phone is a lot different than one in person. Way different. And I think it's the same thing in social media. You know, you want to, you know, and I don't, one thing, if you're right to be on social media, but you show up and we can have a conversation over, you know, with us over what Ardo is doing for the district or what we're doing to prevent.
It could even publicize like, okay, this week is Old Homestead 1 and 2 at such and such's house at such a time. And they may feel more comfortable just riding their bike over to their neighbors than coming to McCormick and having an official presentation or, you know.
These are good ideas, but now we're becoming a levy committee. And I think back to, actually, Mrs. Mass raised the point originally about 45 minutes ago. a levy committee with a strong leader is paramount, and we all agree on that, and we'll continue to talk about that and see if we can find someone using the superintendent as our means of communication. With respect to time, first of all, do we need another work session before our July 20th meeting? Anyone feel like we need another work session before our July 20th meeting?
I think we've kind of hashed out concerns, and I think Mr. Ruff knows where we'd like to go, what we're hoping he can accomplish as far as a community member to head this. I think, I guess in my opinion, I don't think we do.
I don't.
I agree.
I think we're all in agreement. We
I
need to
agree.
put something on in November. It's just,
Treasurer presented to us yet again, very eloquently, the situation. And I do think we all have to be armed with the information to answer the two questions. Why now? Why that amount? And that's key. Motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second?
Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Mass,
Yes.
Mr. Jones. Yes. Mr. Slocum.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes. Meeting adjourned.
And I would like to just apologize for not showing up yesterday morning. I